It looked thirsty. So I gave it more water. The leaves were soft and drooping. A few had started to turn yellow. The soil on top felt dry to the touch. So I did what most caring plant owners do. I watered again. 2 days later, the plant looked worse. The leaves were still drooping. More yellow appeared. A week passed. The soil still felt damp when I pressed my finger into it. And somehow, the plant seemed even weaker. I have seen this pattern again and again in home gardens. Over many years, the same story repeats. A plant looks thirsty. It gets more water. And week after week, it slowly declines. Here is the part that surprises people. The real problem often isn't forgetting to water. It's how we water. If this is happening to you, you're not doing anything wrong. The signs can be confusing. Plants do not always tell us clearly what they need. Before explaining why this happens, it helps to understand why adding more water feels like the right thing to do. When a plant droops, our first thought is simple. It must be thirsty. Drooping looks like dehydration. Yellow leaves look like stress. Dry-looking soil on top seems like proof. So we water. And when the plant does not improve right away, we water again. It feels caring. It feels responsible. After all, plants need water to live. This is where most people get misled. Plants need water, yes. But they also need air. And that part is easy to forget because we cannot see it. Roots sit below the soil surface. We do not watch them grow. We do not see how they breathe. But roots require oxygen in the tiny spaces between soil particles. When those spaces fill with water and stay filled, the roots cannot get the air they need. What surprised me over the years is how often yellow leaves are blamed on dryness when the real cause is too much moisture below. Even experienced gardeners mix this up. The signs overlap. Drooping can happen from too little water. It can also happen from too much. That is why this topic feels confusing. If you have ever stood there with a watering can, wondering what your plant wants, you are not alone. Now let's look at what is actually happening under the soil. Under the soil surface, roots are alive and active. They absorb water. They take in nutrients. And they breathe. Healthy soil is not solid mud. It has tiny pockets of air. After you water, those pockets fill for a short time. Then gravity pulls excess water downward, and air slowly returns. That cycle is important. When soil stays wet for too many days in a row, those air pockets do not return. The roots sit in constant moisture. At first, nothing looks wrong above the surface. Leaves may still look green. Growth may continue. But below the soil, roots begin to weaken. They cannot take in oxygen properly. Their ability to absorb nutrients slows down. Over time, they lose strength. And only after that do the leaves start to show signs. Yellowing. Softness. Slow growth. Here is the key insight. Most watering problems are not about the amount of water you give. They are about the timing between waterings. It is not just how much. It is when. If the soil never gets a chance to breathe, even a small amount of water can create stress. If the soil dries too deeply for too long, that creates stress too. The balance is in the rhythm. Once you understand this, everything begins to make more sense. Now let's talk about one very common habit that quietly disrupts that rhythm. A common mistake is watering on a fixed schedule. Every Sunday. Every 3 days. Every morning before breakfast. Schedules feel organized. They feel responsible. Many of us were taught this way. And if you have been watering on the same day for years, that is completely understandable. But plants do not live by calendar days. One week may be cooler. Another may be warmer. Sunlight changes with the seasons. Indoor heating in winter dries soil differently than summer air. Even the size of the plant changes how quickly it uses water. That means the soil may dry in 4 days one week and 8 days the next. When we water by the calendar instead of by the soil's condition, we slowly create imbalance. The plant might still look fine at first. But over time, the roots never get that proper cycle of wet and dry. One small detail changes everything. Instead of asking, "What day is it?" we begin asking, "What does the soil feel like deeper down?" That leads us to another small habit many people use. The finger test is simple. You touch the top inch of soil. If it feels dry, you water. If it feels damp, you wait. The idea is good. But here is what most people miss. The top inch can dry much faster than the root zone below. Air exposure and light cause the surface to dry quickly. But 2 or 3 inches down, the soil may still be holding plenty of moisture. If we water just because the top feels dry, we may be adding water before the roots are ready. This gives us false confidence. We think we are checking carefully. Yet we are only seeing the surface. The adjustment is simple. Gently insert your finger a little deeper, if the pot allows. If bending is difficult, you can tilt a small pot slightly and feel the weight. Wet soil is heavier. Dry soil is lighter. With practice, you begin to notice the difference. No tools are required. No long kneeling. Just a slightly deeper check. You are not doing it wrong. You are simply looking one layer deeper. Now let's talk about another quiet shift that makes a big difference. Deep watering and frequent sprinkling create very different root systems. Frequent light watering keeps moisture near the surface. Roots respond by staying shallow. They do not need to grow downward because water is always waiting at the top. Deep watering works differently. When water moves through the entire root zone and then is allowed to drain, roots grow downward to follow it. They stretch. They anchor more firmly. They become stronger. What happened when I switched from light, frequent watering to deeper, less frequent watering surprised me. The plants became steadier. Leaves felt firmer. Growth looked more balanced. This does not mean flooding the plant. It means watering thoroughly enough that excess drains out the bottom, then waiting until the soil truly begins to dry before watering again. It may feel like you are waiting longer than usual. That pause is often where healing begins. Plants are patient. They do not need daily attention. In fact, too much daily attention can interrupt their natural rhythm. There is also something important to consider about pots. This is a time to pause and observe your container. Some pots do not have drainage holes. Decorative outer pots may trap water underneath the inner pot. Water can collect at the bottom without being visible. From the top, everything looks normal. But at the base, roots may be sitting in pooled water. This is a very common setup mistake. It happens in beautiful homes and careful gardens. If your pot does not have a drainage hole, you may need to water more cautiously. Smaller amounts. Longer drying time. If there is an outer decorative pot, check occasionally to see if water has collected at the bottom. No heavy lifting is required. Simply tilt gently or slide the inner pot out when convenient. Observation is enough. You do not need complicated tools. Just awareness of where water goes after you pour it. Now you might wonder, how do I know if these changes are working? The signs are subtle at first. Leaves may begin to feel firmer instead of soft. Yellowing may slow down. New growth may appear a little stronger. The soil may dry more evenly from top to bottom instead of staying soggy underneath. You will not see overnight transformation. It often takes a few weeks for roots to regain strength. If this feels slow, that's okay. Plants repair themselves quietly. Instead of dramatic changes, look for steady improvement. Fewer yellow leaves. More stable stems. A sense that the plant is no longer struggling day after day. Patience is part of the process. When watering habits change, roots need time to adjust. Now let's bring everything together into one small habit. Check soil depth, not just the surface. Water deeply enough that excess drains out. Then wait longer than feels comfortable before watering again. That waiting period is where roots breathe. That is where strength returns. You do not need a strict schedule. You do not need daily spraying. You do not need to constantly fix something. Simple habits often solve long-standing problems. With time, you begin to trust your observation more than the calendar. You learn the weight of a dry pot. You notice how leaves look when they are balanced. And the work actually becomes lighter. Before we close, I would love to hear what you have noticed in your own garden. Is there a plant that always seems to struggle with watering? Do you tend to water more often or wait longer? You can share your experience in the comments if you like. Sometimes we learn just as much from each other's stories. In the end, healthy watering is not about doing more. It is about understanding rhythm. Water thoroughly. Allow breathing time. Observe patiently. Plants grow better when we do a little less. Do less. Get more. Trust the process. Trust your observation. And let your plants teach you their pace.